Welcome to Issues. I wanted to share a, an Elvis story. This is from my first visit to Graceland. So I've been to Graceland twice. The first time I went to Graceland, I was 24, and that was 1990, the summer of 1990. And my father and I he was an Elvis nut too. So we took a road trip from the North Shore of Boston to Memphis. So it seemed like it took 3 days to get down there. So we drove down and and then took the tour, and there was something really strange that happened during the tour. So so we're on the tour, and we got to the gravesite, and I mean, it was packed with people. It was extremely crowded. And I just remember like being, as you were circling around the gravesite, just being packed in with people. It's like a parade. It was crazy. And I think it's changed. I think, my last trip was in 2009, and it was done differently. But anyhow, so this was like jam packed into this thick, wide line of people, and you're, you know, up against people's shoulders, right? So I was in front of my father. He was probably a few people behind me because of the way the crowd moved. And and I get up to Elvis's grave, and and suddenly I just had this feeling like something's going on. Like I just had this feeling like the crowd was turning, or like a maybe I thought maybe a celebrity had walked out and people were turning to look. I didn't know what it was, but I just had this feeling like something's going on. And I started looking around to see what it was. And and it took a minute, but suddenly this awake I sort of awakened and gradually became aware of the fact that something was going on with me, but, but I wasn't sure what it was. And I finally realized that my chest was heaving and I was sobbing. And I mean, it was the strangest thing because I wasn't conscious of it. It was like my unconscious took over, and there was a disconnect. It was weird, you know? So I became embarrassed. I didn't want my father to see me sobbing. So I made sure I had my back to him till I had regained my composure. But anyhow, I just wanted to share that story. And it's weird because years later, like in the last 4 or 5 years, with all of the content that's become available, on YouTube about Elvis, I've heard so many people tell these stories about how you could sense, like physically, viscerally sense his presence um, before he like entered a building. Like for example, Shelley Fabaret, right? She's talked about how the first time she did a movie with him, she was on the set and everyone was like waiting, you know. They're just on the set the first time in the morning or something. And she said all of a sudden there was like this sense of like something was happening, something was going on. You didn't know what it was, but you just had this feeling like something was going on. And then Elvis entered, like no one knew he was walking in, but like they could feel his presence. I remember there was another story, a nurse that I guess uh, Elvis's father, this is during the period in the 70s where Elvis was being admitted to the hospital a lot, right? And there was this particular nurse, I guess, who they both he and Elvis both liked, and she respected his privacy and his dignity, right? So they requested he knew he was going to be going to the hospital like in a day or two, and they requested her to be there, and she went. She wasn't on it wasn't her shift, but she actually volunteered. And he was supposed to arrive at like 3 in the afternoon or something, and she arrived at noon. And she said as I was walking in, I knew he was already there. I could There was an electricity in the air. I could just feel it, and I knew he was there, and he was there. He was there early. So so I've kind of related my experience since then to what these other people have said. And I could go on and on with stories like that. But I almost felt like looking back on it, like his presence was there or something. It was the weirdest thing, to be sobbing and to be looking around and not realize you're sobbing. So And the weird thing is, I didn't feel sad that he was, it wasn't like I felt sad that he was dead or something. It was just an unconscious physiological reaction. It was weird. So